Warren Buffett doesn't check the stock market every day. Neither do most billionaires. And once you hear why, you'll never look at investing the same way again. Meet Derek. 34 years old, works in sales, brings home a solid paycheck every 2 weeks. He's not broke. He's not careless with money. He pays his bills on time. He doesn't blow cash on stupid stuff. And if you looked at his bank statements, you'd call him responsible. Sound familiar? Because here's the strange part. Every year, his savings account looks almost exactly the same as it did the year before. Meanwhile, his coworker, who earns less than he does, is quietly watching her portfolio grow a little bigger every single month. Same income bracket, same city, same cost of living, completely different results. The gap between them has nothing to do with luck, and nothing to do with some secret opportunity only wealthy people get invited to. It comes down to something far simpler and far more available than most people assume. Which brings us to the myth that keeps people like Derek stuck for years without ever realizing it. Most people picture rich investors making exotic deals, getting private tips, buying stocks nobody else has access to. In reality, most wealthy people build their fortunes using plain, repeatable habits stretched out over decades. They're not smarter than everyone else. They just refuse to stop. And once you see what those habits actually look like, you'll realize almost none of them require being rich to begin with. If you're enjoying this documentary, I'm John. Subscribe to this channel for more educational finance documentaries that help you build wealth and make smarter money decisions. The first habit is simple, but it's the one most people never flip in their head. Wealthy people buy things that put money into their pocket. Most people buy things that take money out of it. A car loan, a new phone on payment plans, a bigger house than you need. Every one of those pulls cash out of your life every single month quietly in the background. For years. A piece of a business that pays you a share of its profits does the opposite. It puts cash into your life every month. That single shift in thinking, chasing things that pay you instead of things that cost you, is where almost every wealthy investor starts. And it's exactly where owning a business, even a tiny piece of one, comes in. That's why rich people love owning businesses. Not always their own. Often they own tiny slices of other people's businesses through the stock market. When you buy a share of a company, you're not gambling on a number going up. You're buying a small piece of a real business, its stores, its products, its employees, its future profits. Owning stock means owning a sliver of something that keeps making money whether you're at work, asleep, or on vacation. The only problem is picking which business. And that's exactly the guessing game most wealthy investors have quietly opted out of. Most wealthy investors don't try to guess which single company will win big. That's where ETFs and index funds come in. Think of an index fund like a fruit basket instead of a single piece of fruit. Instead of betting everything on one company, you own a small piece of hundreds of companies at once. If one company has a bad year, it barely matters because you're holding hundreds of others at the same time. This is one of the most searched, most misunderstood tools in investing, and it's also one of the most boring. Boring in investing is usually a good sign. That doesn't mean individual stocks disappear from the picture entirely. Owning shares in one specific company can pay off, but it comes with real risk because a single company can struggle or even fail overnight. That's why most wealthy investors treat individual stocks as a smaller slice of a much bigger, more diversified plan, not the whole plan itself. Dividend investing takes this a step further. Some companies share their profits directly with their owners, sending out a small cash payment regularly just for holding their stock. It's not a get-rich-quick trick. It's slow, steady, and repeatable. Exactly the kind of thing wealthy investors love. And it's not the only way to turn ownership into a paycheck. Real estate works on a similar principle. Rich investors often buy property and rent it out, letting tenants slowly pay down the mortgage while the property itself tends to grow in value over time. Not everyone wants to become a landlord, though, which is where REITs come in. A REIT lets you invest in real estate the same way an index fund lets you invest in stocks, buying a small piece of a large portfolio of properties without ever fixing a leaky faucet yourself. None of this works without a foundation, and that foundation is cash. Wealthy people almost always keep a reserve of easily accessible money set aside, enough to cover several months of expenses, so a job loss or emergency doesn't force them to sell their investments at the worst possible time. It's not exciting. It's protection. And that protection connects to another quiet habit wealthy people rarely talk about. Diversification simply means spreading money across different investments so no single bad outcome can wipe you out. It's the financial version of not putting all your eggs in one basket, and it's one of the quietest ways wealthy people avoid disaster. But even diversification isn't the real engine behind long-term wealth. That engine runs on something much slower and far more powerful. Here's where the real magic happens. Compound growth. Picture a snowball rolling down a hill. At the top, it's small and barely moving, but the further it rolls, the bigger it gets. And the bigger it gets, the faster it grows. Investment growth works the same way. Your money earns returns, and then those returns start earning their own returns. Here's how strange that math can get. Imagine a single penny that doubles in value every day for 30 days. For the first 2 weeks, it looks like nothing, just a few dollars sitting there. But by day 30, that one penny has grown into more than $5 million. Nothing changed about the penny. Time just did what time does. In the early years of real investing, it looks like almost nothing is happening. Given enough time, it becomes the single biggest force in building wealth. This is exactly why long-term investing beats short-term guessing. Time in the market matters more than perfectly timing the market. There's a tax side to this too, and it's simpler than it sounds. Certain accounts, like a 401k through work or an IRA, you open yourself, let your investments grow with tax advantages built in. It's less about finding a loophole and more about using tools that are already sitting there, available to almost anyone with a job and an internet connection. Derek's biggest mistake wasn't a lack of money, it was chasing quick wins. A hot stock tip from a coworker, a trend everywhere online promising fast returns. Wealthy investors almost never chase quick money because quick money usually comes with quick losses attached. Patience isn't the boring backup plan. Patience is the strategy. And the biggest threat to that patience isn't the market itself. It's what happens inside your own head. Emotions are often the real enemy. When the market drops, fear convinces people to sell at the exact moment they should be holding steady. When prices are rising fast, excitement convinces people to jump in without a plan. Wealthy investors aren't immune to fear or excitement. They've just built systems that keep those emotions from making their decisions for them. So what can an ordinary person actually copy? Automate your investing so it happens without relying on willpower. Live on less than you earn so there's actually something left to invest. Reinvest what you earn instead of spending it the moment it lands. None of it requires a six-figure salary. It requires consistency stretched out over years, not weeks, and avoiding a few mistakes that quietly trap most middle-class investors without them even noticing. The mistakes are just as consistent, waiting for the perfect moment that never quite arrives, jumping from trend to trend without ever building a real plan, treating investing like a lottery ticket instead of a long, steady process. Derek eventually changed one thing. He didn't win the lottery, and he didn't get a massive raise. He just started putting a small, consistent amount into an index fund every single month, and he left it alone. A few years later, when a friend panicked and sold everything during a rough month in the market, Derek didn't. Not because he was fearless, but because he understood what he owned and why he owned it. That's the real difference between people who build wealth and people who stay stuck. It was never about access or luck or some secret only the rich get to use. It's the same quiet habit Warren Buffett has followed for most of his life. Own good things and don't let go of them too soon. It's about owning things that work for you, giving them time, and having the patience to leave them alone. That habit is available to absolutely anyone willing to start today and stay consistent long enough to let it grow, because the richest people in the world didn't get there by being the smartest ones in the room. They got there by refusing to quit.